We ended up somewhere here. We put in some test data, we did some manipulations, we did some editing, and more importantly, we also copied the content from one sheet across to the other. If we can't do that, I mean, if we put this in, we know we have this, the equation that refers to the previous sheet. In my case, I named it shopping list, right? And I tried to do something at the very end, which was try to do absolute referencing, and it was misbehaving because we had done this and I copied it across, I believe, and it was misbehaving because it wasn't showing exactly what I wanted. So let me see what it resulted in. Was just copy it over across, isn't it? So it made a change. But I think we wanted to have powers of 5, and in the end, we were using relative referencing. So it was basically moving on to using the equation to move on to the next cell rather than keeping just only one cell reference. So we can actually call this powers of J instead of 5, because it's powers of that, let me call it square of J, because we're squaring the corresponding number in J, for example. So I want to add a column called count, and in that particular column, or I would just really want to count from 1 to 10 because I'm looking for powers of 5. Let me change this to general, so it becomes numbers instead of money. And I'll count from 1 downwards. So let's count 1, 2, and I'll just count downwards. All right. And now I want to include the powers of 5, right? And I know I've got 5 here, so I just want to make use of that reference. And then I've got all of this here as well that I would want to multiply by. So ideally, I can actually do something similar to what I did here, and then say, I want what is in this column times what is over there. In that case, then it will be straightforward, J3 times M3. Then I drag it down and I've got all that behavior at the bottom there, right? Which is quite similar to what we had before, but in this case, we're just doing multiplication. And I want only this particular cell. So when I come to this particular level, I still want it to be kept as J3, not J8. So I want to keep J3 throughout. So if I want to keep J3 throughout, this is what I did yesterday. Put a $sign in there and I dragged it across, and we still didn't have the expected results because even though we've kept the column absolute, we are not keeping the row absolute yet. So we need to keep the row absolute too by fixing it here as well. So $J, so fixing the column and then fixing the row as well. So if we drag it across anyway, you've seen it's automatically updated. If I click in here, we still have what? 5 times 2. Then we've got, what did I say? Yeah, we can make this multiple. Let me copy this across. It will be a lot easier. Let me make this multiples of 5, right? Multiples of 5, that makes more sense. And then we go 5 times all the way to 5 times 9 on there. And I can now have the powers in there where I'll make it equal to, in this case, keeping the cell value in J3, and then I want to raise it to the power of the value in the count, which is, in this case, M1. M3, sorry. So now I've got the powers of 5 showing as well. So I have 5 to the power 9, and I can have 5 to the power 8 on there. Does it make sense so far?
Sir, I'm sorry, but I didn't understand what you said, sir.
Sorry?
I didn't get what you did. The other one, powers of 52.
Okay, so yesterday, you remember yesterday we did all this yesterday, right? And then
Yes,
we
sir.
ended around this point where we were working with I've called it like basically squared now, I've made some changes. But we had well, we've done the whatever is the corresponding value in the J column, we raise to the power 2, right? So if I click here as well, it's the corresponding value that is raised to the power 2. So we're still dealing with this particular column. Yeah? We're dealing with that column. Does that make sense? Doesn't look good. Yeah? So we're dealing with this column. And we have just added a count column with, because we want to do either 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, 5 times 4, 5. And then the 5 reference we want to use, if we just really want to use only, we want to write an equation that makes use of only J3. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, sir.
So when we copy it across, it will still keep the J3, because when we did this, when we copied it across, it didn't keep the J3, it changed, right? In this case, it's kept the column. Let me get rid of that. Let me get rid of that and put it there. You notice each of them, it didn't keep the J3, even though we entered J3. It changed across. So we say, what if we want to keep the cell, that particular cell, fixed throughout the equation? So when we get to here, it will still be J3. And we say the way to do that is we put the dollar symbol in front of the column name and in front of the row name. So this means when Excel sees this, it knows that when I'm doing autocomplete, I still need to keep J3, but it's not in front of the M. So if I do that now, let's see. If I keep it in front of M3, for example, and I drag it down, you notice it's a completely different story. It's kept both J3 and M3 throughout the equation. But if I remove it, then it's a different, if I do go back and keep it only on J3, then throughout the equation, it will just keep J3 fixed. And that's what we call the absolute referencing. Does that make more sense now?
Yes, sir. This dollar sign in front of maybe the column you want to, or the cell you want, is just about getting the power of that particular number.
The dollar, so to get the power is this particular symbol, right? That gives you the power, the ampersand symbol, right? That gives you the power, right? It's just that one is a mathematical expression. But the dollar symbol tells Excel not to change the cell value, not to change the cell that we are referencing to. Remember, this is just a reference. If we put in the equation here, we have an equation like this. Let me say we've got this equation, J3, right?
Yes.
J3 is this particular cell on the particular cell with the value of 5, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So don't let the heading confuse you, because the heading is just referring to the contents that we put below it. So if we have only this value, we put in this equation, which multiplies raise J3 to the power 2. This is just the power on the power symbol, right? If I copy it across, suddenly it becomes not just J3. Let me do autocomplete. One down. It's not just J3 anymore. It's updated itself to the next cell below J3, which is J4. You see that? And if I update it again to the next one, it's become J5. It didn't keep the cell. The cell keeps changing because we are doing relative referencing. So each time we do autocomplete, it's just going to assume that we want to raise the value of the next cell to the multiply it by itself, or to raise the power to the power 2. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's less about the equation and more about the referencing. And we are saying, what if we want to tell a cell, don't change J3 to the next one? Keep it at J3 throughout. And the way to force it to keep it at J3 is, first of all, we say Excel, we want to keep the column, and also we want to keep the row with the dollar symbol. So if I press enter, you notice that it's kept the column and the row throughout if we do autocomplete. And if you want to see that, I'll just do autocomplete right now. And it's kept it. So if I click this, you see still the same cell that's raised to the power 2. Because of, it didn't change because of the dollar symbol. Does it make more sense now?
So apparently, sir, the dollar symbol there is to make sure that the whole numbers appears the same.
Yeah, it's just to keep the reference throughout when we do the copy and paste. It's not to change the reference. This particular sheet has too many formulas or too many numbers that may get in our way. So let's try something again, right? We're just working with formulas, right? Okay. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Right. So we want to try it again to see if we create a cell called, we just put some numbers in the cell. I'm just going to start 3, 2, 4, 5. That's enough. And I can, let's add 1 here. Okay. So hopefully you can see my screen clearly. And it's just some numbers. I just normally give it value, right? And I want to multiply, what's the name of the cell to the left-hand side?
F.
The left-hand
E4.
side?
F4.
E4.
Z4.
E4.
E4. Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah. So let's say I want to multiply all the corresponding values in E4 by 2. What equation should I put in the first one if I want to use autocomplete?
Equals E4.
Dollar sign.
$.
No, I want to multiply. So if this is what I want to do, right? If I take this value, I want to multiply it by 2. If I take that value, I want to multiply by 2. If I take that one also, I want to multiply by 2. But I know it's repetitive, so I can use autocomplete. So what formula should I use for the first one?
E4
Equals
equals the E4. Then raised to power 2.
We're doing times, so it's times 2. We all
Okay,
agree.
times 2. Okay.
So I can
Yeah,
just
you
use
copy.
autocomplete and then it works, right? We
Yeah.
can clearly see 10 times 2 is 20. Yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. What if, so I'll just put E times 2 in there. So we just see it, okay? So we see what is happening, what the formula is about. What if I say I want to multiply only E9? E9 is the one with the value 6, right?
So it's going to be equals to dollar sign
So that would be equal to dollar sign.
E
Mhm.
dollar sign
Dollar sign. Then
9.
9.
Then you want to multiply it by
2.
then
Times 2.
2.
Okay.
Then
So
drag.
when I drag it around, you notice that it's still kept only E9. It's never changed the value. So we say no matter what you do, keep E9 and then multiply by 2. So let's try something.
I
What
don't
if
think
we
it's
want
correct.
to? What's 6 times 2?
12.
Do you think it's correct now?
Well, everything is showing 12.
Yeah, because
Because
you answered it. When we put the dollar sign there, it won't change to the next cell. It will keep that particular cell throughout the equation, even if we do autocomplete. That's the point we are trying to prove.
oh, okay.
Yeah. If we don't put the dollar sign, it will change to the next cell. Change to the next cell. Change to the next cell. You notice the difference there.
Yeah.
So if, let's say, we want to multiply 6 by the corresponding value in, not by the corresponding, by the values in F, right? So if we take,
So
Mhm.
if we want to multiply by the values in F, this dollar sign E9 will still remain, then times F4.
times F4, and you can do autocomplete by dragging it across, isn't it? Then that works
Yeah.
for you. And in here, it's just basically 6 times 20 for you. So I think maybe because the first one, we've already populated some content and it may look a bit confusing, but if you take it aside, that is what it is. So what I'm going to do now in the next few minutes is that I'm going to share my presentation with you.
Sir,
Sorry, yeah?
please, I didn't get what you just did right now. Just
Okay.
now, the 12, 24, 36. I didn't get that.
So was that Faith?
Yeah.
All right, so Faith, I'm going to walk through something with you. You tell me this. How do I want to multiply each of these cells by 2, but 1. First of all, I want to put the equation in this first cell, and then I want to use autocomplete to complete the remainder. So if I take E13, I want to multiply by 2. If I take E4, I want to multiply by 2. What formula should I put in here, Faith? Are you still there?
Sorry, I was muted.
What formula should I put in, Faith?
Equal to
Mm-hmm.
E4 times 2 times 2.
And afterwards, what do I do?
You would, I don't know, like you put your mouse at the corner there, then you bring it down. Oh,
Okay.
multiply with that.
Okay, so you're comfortable with this, right?
Yeah.
What if I want to multiply whatever is in E4? So if I take the value in E4, I multiply it by what is in F4, then I'll take E4 again, multiply with that one. I take E4 again all the way down, but I don't want E4 to change, because even though we put E4 in the first cell, F4, when we dragged it down using autocomplete, you notice that it's using a reference. So it used E4 as a reference, then went to the next one. So basically, it's just kept updating itself. We say we don't want that value to change. We want to keep only E4 even when we do updating. What formula should I use? So let's try that here.
Equal to
Mm-hmm.
the dollar sign,
Mm-hmm.
the E,
Mm-hmm.
another dollar sign.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not wrong. 4
Mm-hmm.
multiplied by. So what do you want to
That's 4.
multiply it with?
We want to
Which
multiply by the corresponding values in here. So if I
Okay,
take this and
F-
multiply by that. Mhm.
Nice too.
F4.
Then afterwards, what do I do?
Then you scroll it down. It will copy like the 2.
Yep, that's pretty much what we've done.
Okay.
And it's
So,
1
but I thought
times each
you
of
said
these.
it would it should copy when you use the dollar sign, it's supposed to remain 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. That was why I did
It's
get.
not, it depends on the value that we have there. If you take 1 and you multiply by this, you're going to get that. It's the understanding of the formula you are using, right?
Alright.
It's about what you want to do. It's just a computer. You tell it what you want to do and it does for us. So
Okay.
the question is just the same. This is your solution to the question I gave you. So
Yeah.
if I said whether I update it or not, you want to keep only these two cells throughout the formulas, then you just put your dollar sign in front of that one and your dollar sign in front of this one also. Then in that case, if you drag it across, then you have the 2, 2, 2, 2. So it depends on what you want to do. How you make it. The key thing is understanding the formula. And because you gave me this formula, I'm tempted to assume that you understand it now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, you're most welcome. So what I would do is I will absolute referencing. The significance of absolute referencing is not to get the same answer. So basically, if I put, let's say, 2 numbers, for example, 28, that's something simple. Let's use 4 and 8, okay? And let's say I have taken this as a list. Let's say I have total. And I put my total to be the sum of this, what is above. L4 and
Five.
yeah, so if I put that to be the sum of L4 and let's say L5, for example, and I have that, let's try to also write an equation that makes use. I'm just going to make up an equation. Don't let the equation get in the way, okay? So I want to make use an equation that make use of the sum, which is L7. That's the value of the sum, right? I want to take that sum and then multiply it by the values of, let's say, L4 and L6 as well. So let's say I multiply that by L4. Like I said, don't let the equation get in the way because that's not the point here. And then also I multiply by L5. If you keep an eye on this value here, the value in M, and then also you keep an eye on the value in L. If I change the original data, the moment the original, only literal data, original data in here is L4 and L5. So if I change the 4 to 20, for example, you notice that both of them get updated.
Yes.
Because it's just using referencing, really. It's just a reference to the cell name. It's not a reference to the actual value. It doesn't really matter. So as our data actually gets really large, we can have a lot of equations. We can have so many equations in the Excel document. So if, let's say, I have a really long equation like this one, these ones that we have, let me go back to this one. If I have several equations, if I change this one here to maybe 2, and I change that to maybe 3, and I change that to maybe 20, you notice it's only the corresponding one that changed in here. Forget about the absolute for now, right? Let me set something to the left. Even though I put the equation here and the value change, if this value change to 5, something big, it's only the one that is referencing to that particular cell that changed. So when I was writing my equation, if I didn't know, and my impression was that if this value is going to get updated and I change it throughout, everything is going to change. It didn't happen. But my intention to use the equation is only, the equation should be a function of only this cell. I don't care about the others, right? That is when we use the absolute referencing, because we know that we want the equation should make use of only one cell that we want to use as the absolute. not to update as a reference. It's not about the value remaining the same or not. It's about the value in the cell. Does that make sense?
Okay.
If it doesn't
Okay.
make sense, I can answer it very simply by saying that you make use of absolute reference and when you want the formula to refer to a particular cell, not for it to update when you use autocomplete. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we want the value in this cell is going to be multiplied by the value in this range of cells. So this range of cells, we say multiple. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, all the way down to maybe 12. Is that all right?
Okay, sir.
To 12. So we say we want the answer to be here, right? We just say, let's call it multiples. Yeah, we want the answer to be in here, which is cell yellow times the green, cell yellow times the next green, cell yellow all the way to the 12. So the equal sign, normally, how would we do this? Do you want to give me the equation?
Yeah, the dollar sign.
Okay,
The dollar sign M
yeah,
dollar sign
yeah,
4
okay. Oh, my bad. Mhm.
Multiply
Mm-hmm.
N
Mm-hmm.
N4.
Okay, my question is, why didn't you put the dollar in front of N and why didn't you put the dollar in front of 4 as well? Because you want the N to change, the cell to change to the next cell, to change to the next cell when we do the autocomplete. But you don't want the M to change, you don't want M to change to the next cell, to change to the next cell when we do the autocomplete. All right, let's put a value. Let's put a value 2 there. So we get 2 times. Should I drag it down?
Okay, sir.
What's 2 times 12? 24.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But
Oh.
if we didn't put the dollar, for example, and I drag it down, you notice that the ones at the bottom gives me some strange values because it's assuming that this is 0, that is 0, that's 0. How do we know that? If you go in there, you notice it's selecting that cell. So the dollar
Make
simply
the cell
says
constant.
no, it's not about make the cell constant throughout the equation, but we didn't put dollar in here, so it changed the cell. So it's not about the value, it's about the cell content. So if I change this to 10, for example, I think I'm going to get kicked out from my room in a second, but if we find somewhere else. If I change it to 5, for example, we have this. If I change it, it's not about the value, it's about the cell, the value in the cell. It's not about the actual number there, it's about the value in the cell. So the cell name that we are making constant, and 4 times 12 is 48.